Hey, welcome to Friday. We made it. It's Planet Earth and Mr. H here. It's Friday. It's been hot. It's been raining. Not a lot going on. But hey, it's okay. We got each other. And we have history. We have dinosaurs. We got football. What else do we need, right? Some nice weather would be nice. Hey, I was watching this series called The Boys. Been watching it for like 6 months or so. Mixed feelings on the whole thing. It had some good parts, bad parts. I wanted to see how it all turned out. Apparently, one of the alleged superheroes was some kind of immortal Nazi or something. She turned out not to be totally immortal. That's a little bit of a spoiler there for you. But she said she was 100 years old, and I just started thinking that'd be amazing to see 100 years of German history. I've been to Germany. I've been there 3 times. Always in the summer. I haven't been there in the winter, but I've seen winter in Western PA, so no big deal. And I like Germany. It's a really cool place. People are pretty nice. Lots of things to see. Lots of things to do. If you get bored, walk up a mountain. Welcome to Germany. So Oktoberfest can be fun a lot of times. Be careful. Not much crime, but keep a hand on your wallet anyway. A little bit of advice there from Mr. H. So I was thinking, what if I got to take a snapshot of 100 years of history? What if I took somebody from Germany and watch how that country evolved in 100 years? Would I start there with the Nazis? No, I would never start there. If I have to run into them, I'll run into them and run them over, but I'm not going to start there. Now I'm going back to the beginning of a unified Germany. Here's Germany on January the 1st, 1871. Here's Germany 18 days later. Yep, that's why they're fighting the Franco-Prussian War to kick France's butt and declare the existence of the German Empire at the Treaty of Versailles I'm sorry, Hall of Mirrors. Yeah, Treaty of Versailles is a different thing altogether. The Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, the same place as so many invasions of Germany had been ordered from. So a little bit of poetic justice as far as 19th century Germany is concerned. So where is this country going to go in 100 years? Because Germany never actually been united before this point. So now that they're united, let's go see what they can do. So I pick somebody up and say, let's go on a time travel. Bring some pizza or something along the way there. I know it's not exactly German food, but hey, pizza. Everybody likes pizza. 1896, 25 years later, Germany is the strongest country in all of Europe. The strongest economy, strongest military. Navy is a little bit lacking, but here they are. They may become the strongest in the world. They even got colonies now in Africa and some islands in the Pacific. They're already mixed up in the European defense systems here. We've got the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Italy. France and Britain are allies, kind of. France and Russia are allies. Germany right in the middle. Oh, it's a bad position to be in. But it's the strongest economy in Europe, one of the strongest in the world. They're catching up to Britain. They may have shot past them by 1896. The only one that's definitively bigger would be the United States with industrial capacity twice of Britain and Germany combined. Fortunately for them, in 1896, America's not too much in the world power game. But don't worry, that's changing. So 1896, the future looks bright. Let's jump ahead another 25 years with our German friend here. Oh, he's going to say, what happened? What happened to you, Germany? It looks smaller. I see it's divided in 2 parts. We got the Polish corridor right here. East Prussia separated from the rest of the country. You can tell Alsace-Lorraine's gone. Go out in the streets, it's suddenly wild and unstable. We've got communists out there. We got Nazis out there. Well, not yet, but they're coming. Anarchists, monarchists, every kind of lunatic is out there. The whole country's unstable. He's not even sure it's going to hold together. How it's united right now, who knows? Of course, a year later, almost fell apart there with the cap putsch and everything. But nonetheless, here's Germany in 1921. He says, oh my God, 50 years after unifying, what's going to happen? Maybe we can come back from this. Yeah, maybe you will. Maybe you won't. I don't like dropping spoilers, so just hang on and off we go another 25 years into the future. Oh my gosh, what happened to Germany? As bad as it was in 1921, at least it was in one piece. He's looking at this thing, it's like he just dropped a plate on the floor here. We've got the U.S. occupying this thing. We've got France occupying it here. We got the British, and worst of all, the Russians. This stuff got sliced off and handed to Poland. The center of German militarism over here, been split in half, right? Got Poland here, the Soviet Union has that. What could have happened? I thought Germany could have recovered. You see, the reason Germany was in trouble in 1921 is because what you kept hearing over and over, the Great War ended in 1918. Well, there's another great war, and as you guessed, it didn't go so well for Germany. Oh, it looked like they were going to win there for a second, but nah, eventually the whole thing just kind of fell apart on it. So before our German visitor gets depressed and morose, just say, hey, it will get better. But he still wants to know what happened. What could have led to this? Well, here's the good news. Yeah, you missed out on this. All right, you already know the bad news. This is the good news. You missed out on this idiot who led everybody into, the Second World War. These guys doing what they're doing there, but that's what you missed out on. So you look at the aftermath. At least you didn't have to see the whole thing collapse in agony. So here in 1946, we're gonna go ahead another 25 years. You're like, oh, I hope it gets better. It does actually, because instead of a whole bunch of pieces, it's now two pieces. Yes, East Germany, Soviet dominated, of course, but West Germany, it's democratic, it's free, it's capitalism, it's one of the strongest economies in Western Europe. They put the capital in Bonn because, well, where else are you going to put it? And it's actually a very happy place to be, West Germany. East Germany, even though it's communist, you ready for this? It's the most efficient communist economy in the world. Yeah, the Germans put their mind to something, they can make it work. You can't make communism work, but East Germany came pretty close. So that's an even 100 years. But you know what? Here's a little bonus for you, my German friend. We're going to go forward to the present day. I want you to know that Germany did not remain divided its whole history. Yes, they had a First World War. They had a Second World War. They've got NATO and the Warsaw Pact glowering at each other here over the inter-German border. Your first thought is, oh my God, is there another war? Turns out not really. That war never happened. Now, Germany reunifies again October the 3rd, 1990. West Germany basically absorbed East Germany because communism is a complete failure. Now, when you think of Germany, before it was unified, you're always thinking about certain little guy with a mustache goose-stepping around. After that, you kind of think of this as Germany here, sprockets from Saturday Night Live. But I'll be honest with you, I'll take these guys over the other ones. So Germany is once again strong. It's united. It's the strongest economy in Europe, not just Western Europe, all of Europe. It basically is the engine that drives the European Union. So we'll see what the 21st century brings for it. So far, so good. They got their share of problems, but hopefully they will work it out. Now let's talk even further back. I'm dropping my German friend off back in 1871. There's a few companies I want you to invest in and sell everything in 1913. Take my word for it. Then move to Sweden. Now, way before this, we have Dunkleosteus. Yes, one of the most ferocious ocean predators that ever existed. It dominates the Paleozoic. 382 million years ago to 352 million years ago. And just look at this thing. It is a beast. It is ferocious. You do not want to see this thing. I don't want to see it approaching. I don't even want to see it leaving. I don't want to be anywhere around this thing. These teeth, that's the first thing you notice. They're not even teeth. They're actually extensions of the skull. And look at this. They come together. They mesh perfectly. That means anything that gets, quote unquote, bitten, it doesn't get bitten. It gets sliced in half like it's a pair of scissors. Oh, and this is a big animal too, man. We're talking about the size of a bus. We'll get to that in a second. It was discovered near Cleveland. Yeah, we'll try not to hold that against anybody, man. It was near where the Ohio River empties out into Lake Erie. A guy owned a hotel actually found the skull of that thing. That's all we have is a skull. We don't have a complete set of remains. And yeah, near Cleveland. So Cleveland's got something going for it in the last centuries, back like in 1886. Anybody think this photo look familiar to anybody? Yeah, Steelers winning. Yeah, we know that. This is from 2008 when they had Browns on the side. 2016. That's the year they went 0-16. Yep, and the Steelers were the ones who beat them at the end to send them to 0-16. Hey, you got Dunkleosteus at least. Now, is Dunkleosteus a cannibal? Where does this come out from? Well, like you said, you know about this armor they have in the front, right? And you see these teeth. They found scrapes on the armor. It looks like it came from the teeth of another Dunkleosteus. Now, whether they actually ate each other or were fighting for food or whatever, we don't really know. Somebody trespassing, who knows, stealing internet. But they definitely had fought each other at some point. Whether it's for food or something else, we don't really know. I do know one thing. If these guys start fighting with each other, everybody in the ocean is going to get out of the way. I don't even think Megalodon will want to get mixed up in this. Now, with everything else in paleontology, everything's up for debate, including the teeth. We call this the teeth debate, even though they're not really teeth. Now, this guy, and you can tell he's biased, thinks that this is incorrect. The thing with the skull protrusions acting as teeth. He's thinking perhaps it's like a present day fish with I hesitate to say lips. Fish don't really have lips, but there's flesh covering part of the teeth to hold the teeth in place. Well, if it's already part of the skull, I don't think you need any kind of additional support there. So the debate rages. We don't know yet, but until you find definitive evidence, I'm sticking with this one. Just looks cooler, Like I said earlier, Dunkleosteus is the size of a bus. This thing could be 30 feet long. They extrapolated this. They've never found a full set of remains. All they find is the skull. You saw that huge armor and everything, so that's going to last forever. And so they try to reconstruct, how big it's got to be, how much muscle to support it, et cetera, et cetera. On one hand, remember something. This is in the water. It's not on land, so you don't need as much muscle to hold it up. On the other hand, things that live in the water have to move through the water, and it's harder to go through the water than it is on land. So again, it must be much more muscular, right? Well, some people disagree, and they try to what we call shrunk the Dunkleosteus. This is what we think it is at the moment. The insurgents say it's somewhat stockier, still very powerful, but much smaller. Again, we don't really have any evidence one way or the other, so until we find out, I'm going to stick with this guy. But we do agree on one thing. Homo sapiens in the water is going to get eaten alive by either one of these things. It's going to be very, very bad. And you know what's even scarier? See, this is just the size, not about the teeth. But the minute those teeth open up because they mesh together, it's like a vacuum. So it opens up not just to bite, but sucks in stuff. So if you're close by and this thing opens its mouth, you're going into its mouth and then teeth are coming down on you. Oh, bad news, man. Stay away from the Paleozoic. Now, let's talk about the American experiment. Yeah, there's this bad movie called Red Dawn. They made it in 1984 about Soviet invasion of the United States. Had a remake in 2012, which was actually worse. The one in 1984 was kind of, on purpose bad. The one in 2012 was just bad. But we'll talk about that some other time. I thought about that because I remember a movie poster saying, "Never has American soil been occupied by an enemy force until now." You forgot the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, but we'll just move on from that. So when I heard about American soil being occupied, I thought about the Canadian Football League and the time they attempted to put American teams in the CFL. I remember that. It was kind of funny. I wish it had worked. This was the original CFL logo, and it's got the red, white, and blue on it for the American teams. And then they used this in 2002. Of course, the American experiment was over by that time, but I still like this overall logo a bit more. They switched a new one in 2016. I wish they would have kept this one a little bit longer, but hey, they didn't ask me. So these were the teams, the American teams in the CFL at the time. You got the Sacramento Gold Miners, the Las Vegas Posse, the Baltimore, start off as Colts, then CFLers, then Stallions, so we're just going to call them Stallions. The Shreveport Pirates, the Birmingham Barracuda, the Memphis Mad Dogs, that's a stupid name, and the San Antonio Texans, who were actually an extension of Sacramento because they wouldn't build them a new stadium, so they moved to San Antonio. Now, Sacramento Gold Miners were the first American team in the CFL. 1993, 1994. Typical expansion team, didn't do very well because everybody's new, but they did their best. They left Sacramento in 1994 because they played a Hornet Stadium, which is kind of decrepit sitting there in Sacramento, and they moved to San Antonio because San Antonio had at the time the new Alamo Dome and said, "Come by, we'll be happy to have you." And that's what they did. So they played a couple of years for moving to San Antonio. Then we got the Las Vegas Posse, which was an absolute disaster. You're playing in Vegas, which means there's tons of entertainment options. Even the Raiders today are complaining that crowds are dropping off because the novelty of the team is worn off. They played in Sam Boyd Stadium, not the best stadium, really hot, and you're playing Canadian teams. They even wore white at home a few times here in Las Vegas, try to beat the heat. And they just were not very good. They weren't good on the field. They weren't good off the field. I mean, they just stank. In fact, their very last home game was moved to Edmonton. Yeah, where they were the official home team against Edmonton. So that just tells you the whole thing collapsed. 1994 and only 1994. The very first game they had some lounge singers singing the Canadian national anthem, and he completely destroyed it. Didn't know the words, sung it to the tune of "Oh Christmas Tree," Yeah, you're lucky he didn't get banned from the country. They let him have another shot at it in Hamilton the following week, and he nailed it then. But I don't see him invite. I didn't see them invite him back. Anyway, the Las Vegas posse came, went, gone, goodbye. We got the Shreveport Pirates in 1994. Now, that's a strange place for a CFL team, Shreveport, Louisiana. But then again, so's Vegas, so's Sacramento, right? But Shreveport is really way out there. And they weren't very good either, but they were competitive, and they actually had a little bit of a fan base down there. It was actually growing. So I think if they'd given it some time, this team might have actually become viable. But, in 1995, they're going to pull the plug in the whole experiment. Here's their home jersey. They played in Shreveport Independence Bowl, and here's their away jersey. Now, the Baltimore Stallions were the most successful of these teams. When the NFL was expanding in 1993, they announced Charlotte and Jacksonville. Charlotte becomes the Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville Jaguars in 1995. So then CFL went right in there and said, "You want a football team?" They said, "Sure." So they were going to call it the Baltimore Colts, which naturally triggered an automatic lawsuit over, copyright and stuff. You should have seen that coming, right? And then they had Baltimore CFLers for a while with the same uniform before they settled on Baltimore Stallions. I don't know why they didn't have a plan B from day one. Like I said, there's going to be a lawsuit if you're in Baltimore using the name Colts. Nonetheless, this was a very successful team on and off the field. They had over 30,000 people a game. You see, good crowd over there. Sell a few more seats. And in 1994, they went to the Grey Cup. Yeah, an American expansion team is battling for the Canadian Football League Championship. They lost to British Columbia in the last-second field goal. The following year, they go back to the Grey Cup, this time Regina, Saskatchewan, and guess what? They win it. Yes, the only American team ever to win the CFL Grey Cup, and apparently going to be the last one because they pulled a plug on the American experiment actually before the game. They just had to finish up the season. Now, I talked about Sacramento becoming the San Antonio Texans in 1995. That's what their uniform looked like. There's the home uniform over here, and over here's their visiting uniform. Up and down on the crowds. Again, only have 1 year, so maybe if they stayed around, maybe they would have had something there. But 14,000 people a year in 1995. You're going to need a few more. But like I said, it was the first year. If it started off, and they did make the playoffs, but, they decided to pull the plug on the whole thing. The Memphis Mad Dogs, this was a mistake. All right, I knew this was a mistake. I even shouted at the time, this is a mistake. Football teams don't work very well in Memphis for some reason. Don't know what it is. Liberty Bowl is just bad. And I don't like, this is a stupid name, Mad Dog, and I don't like these uniforms. What is with this, man? All right, what's with this? I don't know. I just don't like it. Well, apparently they didn't like it either. The coach, a guy named Pepper Rogers, was complaining about the CFL all the time. He didn't like the rules. He didn't like the name. He didn't like the time of year. He wanted them to go to a 100-yard field instead of a 110-yard field. He wanted a goalpost at the end. He wanted, a name, a different name that reflected North American rather than just Canadian. He wanted to turn to the NFL, basically. And they said, no thanks. They got no crowds. They were terrible. And they just kind of folded things up. We got the Birmingham Barracudas. They showed up in 1995. Same sort of story as San Antonio. I feel if they had given this team a chance, they might have built something. They had the crowds weren't that big, but they were getting bigger. Again, I don't like this uniform, but the team wasn't very good on the field, but people seemed to actually start supporting it as the year went along. But at the end in 1995, they pulled the plug on the whole CFL experiment. Was it a success or was it a failure? Well, weirdly enough, it was a success because, the Canadian Football League needed some money in the early 90s. And when you've got new teams coming in, you got franchise fees, and that's what got them over the hump and paid off their debts. None of these teams are around except for Baltimore in a weird way because when they found out the Browns were leaving Cleveland to come to Baltimore, become the Baltimore Ravens, they knew they couldn't compete there. So they end up moving to Montreal to become the Montreal Alouettes. So, it still moves on. They've won quite a few Grey Cups. So, the American experiment still lives on in a weird sort of way. But it was really fun while it lasted. Well, that's it for today, man. I'm going to run off and grab a pizza because it's Friday. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out Mr. H's book, Heaven's Still over on Lulu.com. And you guys go out there and have a fantastic day. Feel free to argue with me in the comments too. Das vidanya.